I sat in the corner of the lawyer's office, the leather chair squeaking under me as if even it knew I didn't belong. The air was heavy, thick, almost choking. Sarah leaned in toward Daniel, whispering, laughing softly like she was already celebrating. "Don't," I muttered, more to myself than to them. Sarah glanced at me, her lips curling. "Nervous, little brother." I clenched my jaw, just waiting. Daniel smirked, leaning back, stretching like this was his living room. Well, not like there seps much suspense, right? Dad was always clear about who he trusted. His words cut deeper than they should have. I looked down at my hands, twisting together, cold with sweat. My father and I hadn't been close at the end. We fought. We yelled, but I was still his son, his blood. Surely he wouldn't erase me. The lawyer cleared his throat, glasses sliding down his nose as he shuffled papers. His voice carried the weight of finality. "We such are here today to review the last will and testament of Mr. Robert Hayes." My chest tightened. Even hearing his name hurt. Sarah whispered again, a giggle slipping. I snapped. "Do you mind?" She raised her eyebrows, all innocence. "Relax. This is a happy day, isn't it?" The lawyer glanced up, frowning before continuing. "To my daughter Sarah Hayes, I leave the family home with all its contents." Sarah gasped, clapping her hand over her mouth, pretending to be surprised. Her eyes glistened with fake tears. "Oh, Daddy." Daniel chuckled under his breath. I swallowed hard. My pulse hammered in my ears. "To my son Daniel Hayes, I leave full ownership of the Hayes and Company business with all its assets, rights, and accounts." Daniel grinned, smug and satisfied. He gave Sarah a slow nod as if the two of them had just won a prize they'd earned together. And lastly, the lawyer paused. I sat up straighter, hope sparking in me. Maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe he remembered me after all. The lawyer sighed. "That is all." The papers rustled as he set them down. No, that couldn't set be right." "That seps it." My voice cracked. The lawyer avoided my eyes. "Yes." Sarah leaned forward, smirking. "Guess Dad knew where the real loyalty was." Daniel added, "Don't take it personally, brother. He just didn't think you had what it takes." Their words were knives. I forced a laugh, brittle and sharp. "Not even a mention? Not even $1?" Sarah tilted her head, mock sympathy dripping from her voice. "Maybe he thought you said waste it. You never did live up to the family name." My chest burned. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, to flip the table, to tear the smug looks off their faces. But I didn't. I sat there, silent. The lawyer coughed uncomfortably. I'm sorry, truly. These matters can be painful." "Painful?" "This wasn't painful. It was annihilation." I whispered. "He hated me that much?" No one answered. Daniel stood, buttoning his jacket like the new king of the castle. "Well, I guess that settled, Sarah. Dinner at my place tonight? We should toast to new beginnings." Sarah grinned, gathering her purse. "Wouldn't miss it." She looked back at me, eyes glittering. "You still be fine, little brother. You always land on your feet. Sort of." Their laughter echoed as they walked out, the door closing behind them. The silence left behind pressed down on me, heavier than the lawyer's words. I sat frozen, staring at the polished table. My reflection looked hollow, empty. Inside, something cracked. I wasn't even worth a sentence in his will, not even worth a goodbye. My father had erased me. The lawyer Sep's voice broke through my haze. "You don't have to leave right away. Take a moment if you need." I nodded, but I couldn't speak. My throat was closing. He sighed. "I've seen families torn apart by these things, but sometimes the will doesn't tell the whole story." His words barely registered. All I heard was Sarah's giggle, Daniel's smug laugh. I pushed my chair back, the sound loud in the quiet room. My legs felt like lead as I stood. "Thank you," I muttered, though I didn't mean it. The lawyer gave me a sympathetic look. "I truly am sorry." Sorry? Everyone was always sorry when it was too late. I walked out of that office like a ghost. Sarah and Daniel were already gone, probably popping champagne, celebrating my absence as much as their inheritance. I stepped into the sunlight, but it felt cold. That day broke me, shattered me. But in the cracks, something new began to take shape. They thought they had won. They thought I was nothing. But they hadn't seen the last of me. Not even close. I walked out of that office and straight into the streets like a man without skin. Every sound was sharp. Every step felt heavy. Cars passed. People laughed. The world kept moving while mine had stopped. I muttered to myself, nothing. He left me nothing. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out with trembling hands. It was Sarah. A photo of the house deed, the caption "Guess hard work pays off wall." I stared at it, my jaw tightening. Hard work, I whispered. All you did was wait. Another buzz. This time Daniel, a Facebook post. Proud to carry on Dad's legacy, Hayes and Company stays in the family. A photo of him standing in front of the building, grinning like a king. Comments flooded in. Congratulations, Daniel. Your father would be proud. My stomach turned. I shoved the phone back in my pocket and kept walking. The city blurred around me, streetlights, billboards, a kid eating ice cream with his dad. I couldn't stop hearing my father Sep's voice. Earn your place, son. Nothing is free. Was this what he meant? Did he think I never earned it? My phone buzzed again, this time from Mark, my oldest friend. You okay, man? Heard about the will. I typed. I septum fine. A lie. He replied instantly. Want to grab a drink? I stared at the message, then locked the screen. I couldn't face him. I couldn't face anyone. Not when shame was crawling all over me. I kept walking until my feet burned, until I found myself at my apartment door. The place was small. One bedroom, paint peeling on the walls, a cracked photo frame on the counter. I tossed my phone on the couch and sank into the silence. The fridge hummed, pipes rattled. My chest felt hollow. I looked at the photo frame, a picture of me, Sarah, and Daniel when we were kids. Dad stood behind us, his hands on their shoulders. Not mine, never mine. I picked it up, running my finger over his face. Why? I whispered. The silence mocked me. I heard him again. Earn your place. I slammed the photo down, glass shattering across the counter. I grabbed the pieces, not caring as they cut into my hand. Blood welled up, staining the old wood. I pressed my palm against it, breathing hard. This is what I get? Nothing? The room didn't answer. My phone lit up again. Sarah. Another text. Daniel says we should invite you to dinner, but maybe not tonight. You probably need time to process. My vision blurred red. I typed back, go to hell, then deleted it, then typed again, delete my number. I didn't send that either. Instead, I threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor. I pressed my hands to my face. My chest heaved. For hours I sat in that chair, staring at the broken glass, the old photo. Memories kept pouring in. Dad teaching Daniel how to tie a tie. Dad hugging Sarah when she got into college. Dad telling me, work harder, always harder, never enough. Maybe I did fail him. Maybe I was nothing. But under the weight of that thought, something else stirred. A flicker. A glow. Rage. Hot. Sharp. Real. If I was nothing, then why did Sarah feel the need to rub it in? Why did Daniel parade it online? Because they knew. They knew I could have been something. They wanted me erased. But I wasn't erased. Not yet. I whispered into the empty room, my voice shaking but steadying with each word. You think you Sev won. You think I Sef gone, but I Sep still here. I looked down at my bleeding hand, clenched it into a fist. I will show you both exactly what nothing can do. And in that silence, with broken glass at my feet and blood on my hand, the storm inside me stopped being grief. It became fire. I didn't want to go. Every part of me screamed to stay home, to let them choke on their own celebration. But I went anyway. The restaurant smelled of wine and roasted meat, laughter bouncing off the polished walls. Our family filled a long table, relatives, cousins, all buzzing with cheer. At the head sat Sarah, glowing like a queen, Daniel beside her, smug as ever. Sarah lifted her glass. To Dad, and to us, for carrying his legacy forward. Everyone clapped. Glasses clinked. I raised mine too, but didn't drink. Daniel grinned across the table. Feels good, doesn't it, sis? Dad Sep's work finally in the right hands. Finally? I muttered. Sarah tilted her head. You Sep got something to add. I shook my head. No, just listening. She smiled sweetly. Good, you do that well. Laughter rippled around the table. My stomach knotted, but I stayed silent. I watched them, every word, every move. Daniel boasting about his plans for the business. Sarah gushing about renovations she'd already ordered for the house. And the relatives, nodding, praising, feeding their egos. Not one of them asked me how I was. Not one. But Aunt Margaret did look at me. Quick glances, uneasy. Like she wanted to say something but didn't dare. I caught her eyes once. She quickly looked away. Later, when the dinner was over and everyone drifted toward dessert, I slipped into the kitchen just to breathe. The noise out there was suffocating. I leaned on the counter, staring at the floor tiles when I heard her voice, soft behind me. Not fair, is it? I turned. Aunt Margaret stood in the doorway, her hands folded tight. I forced a half smile. Guess I should get used to it. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Your father wouldn't have left you with nothing. I froze. What did you say? Her eyes darted toward the door, then back to me.
Something stut's not right.
Robert. He always told me he wanted all his children taken care of, equally. My chest tightened. Then why? She shook her head quickly. I don't know, but I know him, that will. It doesn't sound like him. I felt my throat go dry. Are you saying there's something missing? Her lips pressed together, like she already said too much. I can be sure, but don't just accept what they told you. I leaned in, desperate. Do you know anything else? Anything at all? She looked pained. No. Just trust your instincts. Watch them. Before I could ask more, Sarah Sepp's voice rang from the dining room. Margaret? What Sepp's keeping you? Aunt Margaret stiffened. Coming. She turned back to me, whispering fast. Be careful. Then she slipped away. I stood there, heart pounding. Her words rattled in my skull. Your father wouldn't have left you with nothing. I walked back to the table, but the food tasted like ash. Sarah was showing off pictures of her new kitchen plans. Daniel bragged about firing 2 deadweight employees already. I sat, quiet, watching. Their smiles, their confidence, their masks. But now I saw the cracks. When Aunt Margaret avoided Sarah's questions too quickly. When Daniel dodged eye contact with me as he talked about signing papers. When Sarah over-explained why Dad trusted her the most. I didn't say a word. I just listened. Memorized every slip, every twitch. At the end of the night, Sarah kissed me on the cheek, smug and sweet. You find your way, little brother. Don't worry. Daniel clapped me on the back. Try not to take it personally. I smiled thinly. Wouldn't dream of it. Their laughter followed me out the door, into the night air. But Aunt Margaret's whisper followed louder. Something Sada's not right. Your father wouldn't have left you with nothing. I walked home, my fists shoved deep in my pockets, a storm rising in my chest. For the first time since the will was read, I felt something other than despair. Doubt. And with it, a flicker of power. If there was more, if something was missing, then Sarah and Daniel weren't just greedy. They were liars. And liars always leave trails. I whispered into the night. You tried to erase me, but I not gone. I looked back at the restaurant lights fading in the distance. I saw him watching now. I couldn't sleep. The ceiling of my apartment stared back at me, blank and merciless. Aunt Margaret's whisper played over and over in my head. Your father wouldn't have left you with nothing. By dawn, I was already on my feet, pacing like an animal in a cage. There was only one place I could go. The lawyer Sip's office. When I walked in, he looked up, startled. You again? I slammed my palms onto his desk. Show me the will. He blinked. The will has already been read. I don't care. I want to see it. All of it. He sighed, removing his glasses. Mr. Hayes, I understand this is difficult. No, I snapped. You don't understand anything. My father would never leave me with nothing. So unless you want me to think you are covering for them, put the damn papers on this desk. His jaw tightened. He studied me for a long moment. Finally, with a reluctant nod, he reached into a drawer and pulled out the file. He slid it across the desk. Here. But I assure you everything was read aloud. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. Sarah's name, Daniel's name, assets, properties, Accounts. Nothing for me. My stomach twisted. Had Margaret been wrong? Then my fingers stopped. Page 2. It was thin, folded differently, like it didn't belong with the rest. My eyes scanned the words. An addendum. To my youngest who always saw beyond the surface. My breath caught. Beneath it, instructions. A sealed envelope. Locked in a safe deposit box at the bank. My knees nearly gave out. I whispered, "He did leave me something." The lawyer leaned forward, frowning. "That was instead. Wait, let me see that." I pulled the page back. "Don set you dare." His face flushed. "I was instead hiding it, it must have been overlooked." "Overlooked?" I spat. "Or buried?" He raised his hands. "I assure you." "You assure me nothing," I snapped. "You read the first page. You stopped. Why?" He hesitated. "Because, your siblings insisted, they said the rest wasn't such relevant." Rage flooded me so fast my vision blurred. "They knew." The lawyer swallowed. "I didn't set think." "You didn't set think. That was my life. My father Sep's words, and you let them cut me out." His eyes dropped. I stumped sorry. "Sorry doesn't fix this." I stared at the paper again, my father's handwriting scrawled across it. Messy, familiar, real. For my youngest who always saw beyond the surface. I whispered the line out loud, tasting every syllable. For the first time since his death, I felt him, not the man who scolded me, not the man who told me to earn my place, but the man who saw me, knew me. My fists trembled, they tried to erase me, they wanted me invisible. I pressed the paper flat against the desk, breathing hard. But he didn't forget me. He left me something they didn't want me to find. The lawyer Sep's voice was cautious. "Do you want me to arrange access to the deposit box?" "Yes." My voice came out like steel. "Immediately." He nodded slowly. "It may take a day or two." I cut him off. "Then make it one. No excuses, no delays." Silence fell, only the hum of his desk lamp filled the air. I folded the page carefully, sliding it into my pocket. The lawyer shifted. "What are you going to do?" I looked him dead in the eyes. "I sem going to open it, and then I sem going to burn everything they built on lies." His mouth opened, then closed. He didn't argue, he just looked afraid. I turned and walked out, my pulse hammering. The city outside looked different, sharper, like I could see every crack in the pavement, every shadow in the glass towers. I touched the folded page in my pocket. My father's words burned against me like fire. All this time, I thought he hated me. I thought he wanted me forgotten. But no. It was instead him. It was them. Sarah, with her fake tears and smug smiles. Daniel with his hollow speeches about legacy. They hadn't just taken what wasn't theirs. They had tried to bury me. And they almost succeeded. But page 2 had survived. I whispered into the wind. "You made one mistake." I looked toward the bank across the street. "You left me a crack to slip through." Rage and clarity surged together inside me, sharp and undeniable. For the first time since the funeral, I didn't feel broken. I felt alive. And I knew one thing with absolute certainty. They were never going to see me coming. The bank smelled like metal and paper, cold, sterile. My footsteps echoed on the marble floor as a clerk led me down to the vault. "Box number?" he asked. I handed him the slip, my fingers damp with sweat. "This one?" He nodded, disappeared behind a thick steel door, then returned with a small rectangular box. He set it on the table. "Take your time," he said, then left me alone. I stared at it, my throat tightened, my hands shook. This was it. My father Sep's last words. I slid the key in, turned it. The lid creaked open. Inside, an envelope, heavy yellowed. My name on the front, in his handwriting. I whispered, "Dad." Beneath it, a ring of keys, old worn each with a tag. But, the letter. God, the letter. I tore it open. His handwriting filled the page, messy but strong. My eyes blurred as I read aloud. "To my youngest, who always saw beyond the surface." I swallowed hard. "If you are reading this, it means I am gone. I need you to know the truth, because it was kept from you for too long. Sarah has a silver tongue. She twisted my words, Poisoned my ear, convinced me you were ungrateful. I was weak. I let her. And Daniel, he stole from me, embezzled money from the company, lied to my face. When you tried to tell me, I didn't listen. That was my greatest failing as a father. My knees buckled. I gripped the edge of the table. You knew. I forced myself to keep reading. They conspired together, to isolate you, to break you, and they succeeded more than I want to admit. I was harsh with you because I thought it would make you stronger. Instead, it drove you further away. For that, I am sorry. My chest burned. My eyes stung. I whispered, "Why didn't Set you say this when you were alive?" The paper shook in my hands. I had to be careful. If Sarah or Daniel suspected, they would destroy everything. That is why I left this letter hidden. Why I gave you not money, not property, but something more powerful. In these keys is the control they crave. One key is to my private office safe. Inside, you will find documents, proof of Daniel's theft, proof of Sarah's manipulation. Another key is to a lockbox that contains the controlling shares of Hayes and Company. The company is yours, not theirs. Yours, I gasped. The words hit like thunder. I trust you, son. More than I ever said aloud. You are the one who sees beyond surface smiles, beyond greed. The others wear masks. You never could. That is your strength. Use it now. I covered my mouth, choking back a sob. I cannot undo the pain I caused you, but I can give you this. My legacy is not the house, or the cars, or even the company. It is the truth, and I leave it in your hands. Do not let them erase you. Do not let them win. The last line shook me to my core. I believe in you. I lowered the paper, my vision swimming. For a long moment I couldn't breathe. All those years, every cold word, every silence, and here it was, his guilt, his confession, his trust. I whispered, "You did see me." I pressed the letter to my chest. My heart pounded against it like it could fuse into me. The rage I'd carried for weeks shifted, sharpened. It wasn't just anger anymore, it was purpose. I looked down at the ring of keys, metal glinting under the fluorescent light. Proof, power, revenge. My father hadn't forgotten me. He had armed me. I clenched the letter in one hand, the keys in the other. They think they won, I whispered. They think I spent nothing. I closed my eyes, hearing his words again. Do not let them erase you. I believe in you. For the first time in years, I felt him beside me. Not the stern, distant man, the father I'd always wanted. Tears slipped down my face, but my jaw hardened. I wasn't worthless. I wasn't raced. Sarah and Daniel had played their game in the open, laughing while they cut me out. Now it was my turn. Only I wouldn't laugh. I folded the letter back into its envelope, slid the keys into my pocket, and stood tall. The clerk peeked in. All set. I wiped my face, forcing calm. Yeah. He smiled politely. Everything in order. I almost laughed. More than you know. I walked out of that vault with fire in my veins and steel in my hands. For the first time since the funeral, I didn't feel like a ghost. I felt like a storm. And storms don't ask permission. They destroy. I learned something from the letter. Not all wars are loud. Some are silent. And silence was my weapon. Sarah twirled around the living room like a queen showing off her castle. See? She smirked, gesturing at the new chandelier. Dad Sep's taste was so dated, it needed a woman Sep's touch. I forced a smile. It Step's beautiful. She grinned wider, mistaking politeness for weakness. Daniel raised his glass. To new beginnings, Hayes and Company finally under competent leadership. His eyes slid to me, daring me to protest. I lifted my own glass. To family, I said softly. They laughed, mocking. Inside I was fire. On the outside, calm water. I played my part well. The forgotten child. The outsider desperate for scraps. I nodded when they bragged. I clapped when they gloated. And I memorized every careless word. At the office, Daniel strutted through the halls like a king. From now on, he announced, we start streamlining. Old contracts. Gone. Loyalty doesn't pay bills. An older employee muttered under his breath. Your father thought differently. I caught his eye. Quiet. Careful. Later I found him in the break room. Mr. Patel, I said softly. You worked with Dad for years, didn't set you? His eyes narrowed. Yes, why? Because I remember how he trusted you. I leaned closer, and because Daniel doesn't stet. He studied me, searching. Finally, he whispered, call me if you need me. He slid me his card. One ally. At dinner one night, Aunt Margaret dabbed her lips with a napkin, her gaze sharp as glass. Sarah, she said, your father would never approved of tearing down his study for a wine cellar. Sarah chuckled, times change. I set my fork down. Aunt Margaret, do you ever miss him? She froze, her voice softened, every day. Our eyes met. Something unspoken passed between us. She knew I wasn't buying Sarah Sip's act. And she didn't either. Another ally. I visited Mr. Harris, next my father's closest friend. He opened the door, his face worn but kind. I wondered when you come. My chest tightened. You knew about everything. He sighed. Not everything. But enough. I told your father more than once he was letting Sarah twist him. He wouldn't listen. Then why help me now? I asked. He looked me dead in the eye. Because you stir not like them. You stir his blood, yes. But you stir also his heart. He knew it, even if he failed to show it. My throat ached. I have his letter. His eyes widened. Then the truth is in your hands. And just like that, I had another piece of the puzzle. Day after day, I wore the mask, smiling at Sarah Sip's parties while her guests whispered about her generosity, clapping when Daniel announced board changes, even as old employees were shoved out the door. One night, Sarah cornered me in the hallway. You've been quiet, she said, not sulking, I hope. I forced a laugh. No, just trying to adjust. She leaned closer, her perfume suffocating. Good, stay in your lane, it suits you. I nodded. Of course. She walked away, heels clicking like daggers on marble. I gripped the banister until my knuckles turned white. Every fake smile I gave her was another brick in the wall of her downfall. Daniel wasn't subtle either. He strutted around the boardroom, boasting, under my leadership Hayes and Company will double profits. Father was sentimental. I sent him realistic. I tilted my head. Is that what you call embezzling? Realistic? He froze. What did you just say? I smiled sweetly. Relax, Daniel. Just a joke. But the flicker of panic in his eyes told me everything. He knew. Somewhere deep down he knew the game wasn't his anymore. Nights were hardest. I'd sit alone with the letter, my father's words echoing in my mind. Do not let them erase you. I believe in you. I whispered back. I once let you down. Piece by piece, the board shifted. Sarah thought she was redecorating a legacy. Daniel thought he was rewriting history. But I was patient. I was listening. And while they played kings and queens, I was becoming the storm waiting at their door. I waited until the moment was perfect. Until Sarah's glass of wine was half full, her laughter sharp enough to cut. Until Daniel's voice boomed about profits that didn't exist. That's when I laid the second page of the will on the table. Sarah Sepp's eyes snapped to it. What the hell is that? Daniel frowned. We Sepp already read the will. Don Sepp start your pity circus again. I leaned back, calm, then read it, out loud. Sarah snatched it up. Her face drained as her eyes darted across the page. This is fake, she spat. You forged it, you subber desperate, pathetic. Daniel reached for it, his hands shaking, he read in silence. Finally he whispered, Dad left you controlling shares. I met his eyes. Yes. To me, not you. Sarah Sepp's voice rose, shrill, cracking. This is a lie. Everyone knows you were the useless one. Dad wouldn't trust you with pocket change, let alone the company. I tilted my head. Then why does his signature look exactly like every other page? She froze. For the first time she had no quick comeback. Daniel cleared his throat. His tone shifted smoother, snake-like. Look, maybe we can work something out. You don't want to get dragged into lawsuits, do you? That sip's messy, costly. I smirked. Messy for who, you or me? He leaned closer, lowering his voice. We still pay you, generously. You walk away, no one ever needs to know. I laughed, loud, bitter. So now you are offering me hush money. How much, Daniel? How much is my father Sepp's trust worth to you? He stiffened. Enough to make you comfortable for life. I leaned in. I don't want comfortable. I want justice. Sarah slammed her fist on the table. This is garbage. You think you can just show up with a piece of paper and undo everything we Sepp built? I snapped. Everything you Sepp built. You mean everything you stole, the house you manipulated him into signing over. The company Daniel bled dry. You think I don't know? Her face twisted, ugly, desperate. Daniel hissed, careful. I stood. Calm, steady, every word deliberate. I Sepp's already filed the papers. Ownership is mine. The lawyer verified it. The bank verified it. It's done. The silence was deafening. For once Sarah and Daniel had no words. Then Sarah shrieked, "You sit'll ruin us." I stared at her. Cold. No. You ruined yourselves. The next days moved like dominoes falling. Employees whispered, first in corners, then louder. Daniel stole from the accounts. Sarah manipulated contracts. One by one, people stepped forward. Old staff, loyal to my father. Mr. Patel, even Mr. Harris. Meetings turned tense. The boardroom, once Daniel's stage, became his execution chamber. Where's Sepp's the missing money, Daniel? Why did expenses triple under your watch? Why are longtime employees filing complaints? He stammered, sweated. The king stripped bare in front of his subjects. Sarah wasn't spared either. At one of her parties, a guest raised his glass. Lovely home, Sarah. Pity you redecorated with money that wasn't yours. Her smile cracked. Wine spilled. Eyes turned toward her. Her kingdom of chandeliers and marble floors suddenly felt like a cage. And me? I didn't even have to scream. Didn't have to fight. I just stood still and let their lies devour them. Daniel cornered me once, desperation dripping from his voice. Please, he begged. You don't understand. If this goes public, I sup and finished. I looked at him, the brother who laughed when I begged for help. Finished? I said softly. You are just finally being seen for what you are. His eyes filled with hate. You still regret this? I leaned in, whispering, the only thing I regret is not watching sooner. Sarah came next. She stormed into my apartment, mascara streaked, her hands shaking. You think this makes you better than me? She shouted. You were always the weak one, always begging for scraps. Dad pitied you, that's all. I held her gaze. If pity is leaving me the shares, then I said tell take it, because at least he trusted me more than he ever trusted you. Her lip trembled. You don't deserve it. I stepped closer, my voice sharp as glass. You were right. I don't deserve what you did to me, but this I've earned. Watching their empire collapse wasn't quick. It was slow, painful, beautiful. Like glass shattering in slow motion, every crack spreading until there was nothing left to hold. And through it all, I stayed silent. No screaming, no grand speeches. Just truth. And truth was louder than their lies ever were. For the first time, I felt my father's voice in my chest again. For my youngest, who always saw beyond the surface. I whispered back, I see it now, Dad. And I make sure they never forget it. The masks were off, and the war had only just begun. The room was heavy with silence. Leather chairs, polished wood, all eyes fixed on me. I spent years being the shadow in this family. Now I stood at the head of the table, my father's words in one hand, his deed in the other. I cleared my throat. Before we begin, there's something you all need to see. Murmurs rippled, Sarah shifted in her seat. Daniel smirked like it was all a joke. I unfolded the letter. My father's handwriting trembled across the page. Debtor for my youngest who always saw beyond the surface. Set. I read aloud. He trusted me with the controlling shares. Hidden, protected, from them. I pointed at Sarah. Then Daniel. Gasps broke out. Chairs creaked. Sarah shot up. Lies. Fabricated garbage. You can seriously believe this? Daniel sneered. Don let him manipulate you. He nothing, always has been. I slammed the deed onto the table. Then explain why the bank, the lawyer and the registrar verified everything. This I tapped the paper. Is real. The chairman leaned forward, brows furrowed. Are you saying the company is in step, Daniel Seps? I met his stare. It never was. My father left it to me, and here sets why. I turned, locking eyes with Daniel. You stole from the accounts. The words echoed like a gunshot. One of the shareholders whispered, "Is that true?" I didn't wait. 3 million siphoned through shell companies. I have the records, every transfer, every fake invoice. Daniel Sepp's face flushed. You can prove. Already did. I slid a folder across the table. Bank statements, employee testimonies. Even Mr. Harris confirmed it. The shareholders opened it, papers shuffled, shocked gasps followed. Then I turned to Sarah. And you spent years poisoning him against me, whispering in his ear, twisting every fight into proof that I was unworthy. You isolated me until he doubted his own son. Sarah shook her head furiously. That Sepp's not Ted. I cut her off. You blackmailed contractors, threatened staff, stole from the charity fund and called it dead renovations. Her lips trembled. Stop. I slammed my hand on the table. No, you stop. Stop pretending you built any of this. You fed off him until there was nothing left, and when he died, you thought you could erase me. The room fell into chaos. Voices overlapped. Did she really? I heard rumors. This is unbelievable. Daniel stood, fists clenched. This is a damn witch hunt. He Sepp's twisting everything. He doesn't care about the company. He just wants revenge. I locked eyes with him. Calm, deadly. You sir right about one thing. I do want revenge, but this isn't set twisting. This is truth. Sarah Sepp's voice cracked. Please, please, I didn't mean for it to. Tears streamed down her face. Her perfect mask shattered. I stared at her. Cold. Save your tears. They once wash away what you did. The chairman banged his gavel. Enough. We seen enough. The evidence is clear. Ownership belongs to him. Effective immediately. Every head turned to me. For the first time, I was instead invisible. For the first time, I was seen. Daniel growled, shoving his chair back. This isn't over. I smirked. No, Daniel. It's just over for you. He stormed out, fury dripping off him like sweat. Sarah stayed seated, shoulders shaking, sobbing into her hands. But I felt nothing. No pity. No sympathy. Just justice. I held my father's letter against my chest. His words echoed in my head. For my youngest who always saw beyond the surface. And I whispered back, so only I could hear. I saw it all, Dad, and I made them pay. The boardroom fell quiet again. Not with silence. With respect. With fear. And as I stood there, deed in one hand, letter in the other, I knew. The fall wasn't mine. It was theirs. The boardroom noise faded, but it stayed inside me like an echo. I carried the letter back to his study, the one place untouched by their poison. The air smelled of old books and cedar. Dust lined the shelves. His chair still faced the window like he'd only just left. I sat down. The paper trembled in my hands. I whispered, almost afraid of the sound. All right, Dad. Talk to me one last time. I unfolded the letter. His handwriting wavered, uneven but strong. To my youngest, the one who never stopped watching, never stopped listening. I closed my eyes. You saw me, didn't you? Even when they tried to erase me, you knew. The words blurred. I forced myself to keep reading. I could not protect you from their cruelty, but I could trust you with what mattered most. I choked on a laugh. You did, and I made them pay. Every secret, every lie, I turned it back on them. My voice cracked. I hope that's what you wanted, because it nearly broke me. Silence pressed in, heavy and patient. I imagined him there, his hand on my shoulder, the way he'd look at me when I was a child, quiet but proud. For the first time I let the anger go. Not all of it, just enough. I read the last lines aloud, barely breathing. You are more than my heir. You are my son. Be proud of yourself, not just of what you own, but of who you are. The words cut deeper than any betrayal ever had. I whispered back. I am Dad. For the first time, I really am. The study felt lighter, as if the walls had been waiting for me to claim this moment. I placed the letter on his desk, smoothing the edges with my hand. Not as a weapon anymore, not as proof, but as a reminder. I stood, glancing around one last time. Rest now. I still carry it from here. And with that, I walked out. Not broken, not invisible. But his son. The first night in the house was silent. Too silent. I stood in the hallway, my reflection caught in the darkened glass. For years this place belonged to Sarah's vanity, Daniel's arrogance. Now it was mine. But I didn't move in as a victor parading spoils. No. I moved in as someone who had survived fire and walked out still breathing. I whispered into the emptiness. This isn't set a trophy. It sets proof. The walls had seen battles I'd never win with fists. Betrayal, lies, silence. Now they set see something else. I ripped down Sarah Sip's velvet drapes. I tossed out the gaudy chandeliers she called statements. Room by room, I replaced gold with warmth. Wood, light, family photos restored to their places. This is how it should have always been, I murmured, placing my father's picture on the mantel. And for once, I wasn't speaking to ghosts. I was speaking to myself. At the office, whispers followed me. Old employees approached with cautious smiles. Sir, we never thought we'd see this day. I laughed softly. Neither did I. Another asked, why rebuild? After everything? I looked them in the eyes. Because it was instead about money, or revenge. It was about respect. My father set's name, our legacy. Their nods told me I was instead alone anymore. But the question everyone really wanted to ask eventually slipped out. How did you endure them? After all they did? I paused. Let the silence sit heavy. Then I smiled. Page 2. Confusion crossed their faces, then curiosity. I leaned closer. One hidden page changed everything. One truth they tried to bury saved me. The words hung in the air like a secret too sharp to touch. Nights were different now. I'd walk through the house, barefoot on polished wood, every step lighter than the last. Sometimes I'd stop in my father's study. The letters stayed on his desk, untouched, unmoved. I fawed whisper, I hope you stir proud, Dad, not of what I own, but of who I became. The silence felt warmer now, almost like an answer. Sarah and Daniel? Gone. No calls, no letters, no apologies. But their absence didn't feel like a loss. It felt like space. Space I needed to breathe. One afternoon, I stood outside the gates of the estate as a journalist asked, what do you call this chapter of your life? I smiled. Not bitter, not angry, just sure. I call it rising. The pen froze over her notepad. And what fueled that rise? I didn't hesitate. Page 2. They tried to erase me. But in the end, I wrote the final line. Not revenge, not bitterness. My own ending. My own beginning. And for the first time, I wasn't sad just surviving. I was living.